The story begins with the young girl lies at the bottom of the depression. A puddle of blood spreads from her head. Poor thinks that no one has loved her throughout her life and wonders why it happened. The girl's name is Camilla Osalis. She was born from the forbidden union of the Duke and the common man. Nothing good in the future was expected, except for ridicule and suffering from the bullying of others. Even the servant of her time was bullied and mocked her. The servants were poured with water and called bad words. It was difficult for a girl to live in such an atmosphere of disrespect and a bad attitude. It was always the father to roll on her. The man gave her attention to her younger sister Catly, who was born of a woman of noble origin. He almost did not pay attention to Camilla and was not interested in it. Catly was born very beautiful and little ability to magic. Around all of her were admired, although sometimes it was dictated by the fact that she was a daughter of an influential person. Often the girl was mocked over Camilla. The girl constantly said that she would protect her father's house, because her older sister was not born with the ability to magic, and it is very poor in health. She often hinted that without Camilla you can do without, although often the girl did it not consciously and for the sake of evil. One day, Catly gave her sister a beautiful pink ribbon. She said that the girl has a very exhausted look. The same tape would give her joy. Later, his father stopped Camilla and asked where this tape came from. After all, Catly belonged. The girl tried to answer that her sister gave her decoration, but the man did not believe in her words. He believed that his daughter was lying. Catly stood behind her father. She looked carefully at her sister, which they soon had to punish. She also said that she did not give the tapes but simply borrowed her to take her older sister, and he does not want to give. The man did not understand the essence of the case. He firmly took up the stick and hit his daughter, but she fell to the floor. The girl felt defenseless and preparing for the worst. Earlier, her father had never swore. Camilla often heard words that she was an illegitimate daughter, whose appearance no one expected or wanted it. Her task now was to withstand the torture and not to dream of the honor of her mother. All these years, the younger sister used her position. She always manipulated her father, who constantly performed her tights and often believed only in her words, although often Catly lied to her sister. Camilla sought to believe that they were a family, despite the fact that they had to endure suffering and bullying. The girl always wanted to be part of the family, loving and protected. Camilla and her sister and her father went to the palace where they had to visit the ball. It is there that they first purchased. So much depended on this evening. Catly was just delighted with what had to happen. The father replied that it did not make sense to rush to the palace. After all, there is an opportunity to stroll through the streets of the capital and enjoy the local landscapes and the life of a big city. Catly supported him. Camilla had the courage to assure that it was impossible to be late in the evening. It is not beautiful to force His Highness to wait for the guests. This can cause them to fall into disgrace. The father asked if his daughter would challenge his decision. It was said in such a tone that Camilla did not dare to contradict his will. Although she perfectly understood the consequences of such an act, ill-advised and stupid. Catly rejoiced. She enjoyed the fact that her father was put on her daughter. After all, she felt her advantage. The girl said it was a great opportunity to spend more time nearby. After all, they rarely work out. Camilla was forced to agree. Before that, she considered them members of her family. And they still want to spend time together. And Catly even called her sister today. The same could still be established. Catly looked from the carriage. She was delighted that the walls of the city had already been visible. The girl was very happy and noticed anything around. It was beautiful and very fresh. The girls rejoiced. The father and daughters came out of the carriage. The man called the girls to show them the birds, which near the mountain, and now they could look at it from above. Catly was eagerly joined. The man and Camilla stood almost on the nose of the rock. Catly refused to approach because she was afraid of height, and Camilla and father decided to come closer to fully enjoy the landscapes and birds. Camilla was glad because she would finally be able to spend time with her family who still loved her. These thoughts reassured the girl. Finally, there was an impression that something in life was getting better. It was added that the girl was first taken with them beyond the estate. The joy overwhelmed her. The father called to herself because she could miss the opportunity to enjoy the birds. Camilla turned to thank her husband for the trip and impressions, but something she did not expect. The father did not love her, but what happened could not happen under any circumstances. The father pushed the girl from the high rock on which they stood before. In the impulse, he put the maximum force. Camilla could not stay on her feet and had nothing to grasp. The girl fell. The man looked after the girl who disappeared in the gorge. He tried to make sure that he had succeeded and his daughter would not survive after such a fall. The father saw a fright and amazement in his daughter's eyes. Finally, the girl heard her father's request for forgive him. After all, the palace had to be present today, and in her beauty she could distract him from Catly. Namely, her father was betting in the future. It was Catly who had to become a happy father's ticket for a better and safe life. The man said that the girl of bad origin, the prince, would not give preference, and the duke must capture his attention and get rid of. The father said goodbye to his daughter and looked carefully at the bottom of the gorge that ran before them. She was scared, as if she was staying. Camilla did not want to die, especially by the hand of his native father. He followed the girl with a laughing bouquet with flowers. My father said it was her farewell gift, and she had to be grateful to him for trying to endure her all these years and be expenditure because of its maintenance. The girl lay on the stones. Blood flowed from wounds and scratches. Camilla was all in the flower petals. Now she realized that no one ever loved her, and it was through attempted life that they took her with them this time. Camilla realized that from the very beginning she wanted to kill and get rid of her. The consciousness of the girl slogan. The events from the past life of puzzles tried to shake in their heads and give way to some sogades or thoughts. Finally, the poor thought that death was very similar to sleep. And in this dream, she will have to suffer and constantly experience the same constantly. After all, her eyes will not see this rotten world. Camilla felt light and warmth. She saw a young couple who was holding a baby in her hands. The parents were very pleased with the appearance of the daughter and turned to her gentle words. Both were pleased with the appearance of the baby. The father considered his daughter carefully. She was his pride and caused him the delight and feeling of something beautiful and sweet. They and his wife were long at her appearance, and finally it happened. The woman told her husband, who was called Anon, that the girl has a name. He agreed with her. After all, their daughter will become the last petal of hope and the hopes of the country for salvation and prosperity in the future. The man kept the baby in front of him. He was the name of her Anemone and admired her and predicted her a great future. She will become the defender and the last ray of hope for the ordinary people of the kingdom. Suddenly, despite the delight of her parents, the girl began to shout and cry loudly. The husband and his wife looked at each other. None of them did nothing wrong, so it was strange. And the girl who was crying but could not speak suddenly thought that she was still alive. This thought made its way from afar, but did not rest it, and confused more and more. The baby was lying in a beautiful bed. It was very light and warm around it. But the bright light was too blind. In addition, she had clothes that will not be called comfortable and pleasant to the body. In the head, interrupting the loud sounds that came from everywhere, the idea that it should be dead. After all, she remembers her father pushed her from the rock specifically to get rid of the annoying problem. In the last seconds of her life, the girl dreamed of forgetting everything about her relatives who had done so. The forgetting had to take with them the images of their faces, which she saw before her death. Camilla's consciousness was transferred to the body of a little girl who was so waiting for her father. The poor thought that it was a miracle. Or she heard about the same in books or comic books about the Danes. A boy was standing near the girl's bed. He looked at the little one carefully. She has already started to open her eyes and wave her legs and hands funny. But she just opened her eyes more wide. She started crying. The maid once again thwarted on a small one, who again went into the bedroom of the princess without the permission of her parents for that. The woman continued to rehearse, because she was responsible for his well-being and safety of her ward. The boy was business weight, saying that there was no reason to scream. After all, he did nothing with the child. This little one was the first prince of the kingdom of Ricole. His name was Jean Richoton, and he was the heir of the king. Small did not want to quarrel or scandal with a servant. He said he did not conceive anything terrible or bad. The woman could not answer anything, because the prince was right. He did nothing bad. Parents entered the room. The mother asked the little one not to quarrel with Cecil. After all, it is simply very concerned about the fate of the little princess, which is responsible for. She did not burn out of evil. The son ran to his father. He wanted to hug both his parents. The mother stressed that Jean was just interested in her younger sister, and he was very interested in looking at her as she grows and behaved. But the boy began to deny. He said that he was just interested in the girl, because everyone in the palace is just about her. So he decided to look at her while everyone was discussing a girl. The kingdom of Recol has been rules of Dentian's family for many years, and after her death, Camilla reborn into the body of their younger daughter. Now she was called Anemone Recol Gentian, and she became a princess. The kingdom of Recol was not great, but the order in it was fairly fair and correct, as in such a state. People were ready to go to his defense, and when the need came, always voluntarily. The current royal dynasty also began to use magical artifacts. The ability to magic was very valuable in these lands. Possessing them, it was easy to get rich or become a famous and good person. Different types of magic were used by whole guilds of sorcerers and magicians. Of course, some have not always used for the benefit of the ability to own magic. But such people were persecuted and punished. The parents looked at their girl and rejoiced that having a good son, the heir of the throne, they will now be very beautiful. It was not necessary to show her to the surrounding neighbors. The boy also wanted to look at her, so he asked his father to show his sister. The man was playing with his son and pretending to be against it. The mother asked the boys to calm down because they can wake up Anemone. The happy family gathered in the middle of the palace and laughed loudly and rejoiced in the life and all the prospects that were revealed in the future. The good royal family was respectful among the people. In the meantime, his father asked Jean, "That is why it's not time to study." He replied that today the lessons ended in the morning, and in the evening he will go to a magical tower where he will study magical abilities. Anemone, meanwhile, opened her eyes slowly and with trembling. But she felt that as soon as she sees the face and smiles of these people, she began to nervous and remember the events of a past life. She did not believe that it could be different. Before her eyes, a picture of her father's thickening above her came. One day she carried him to dine and inadvertently released a bowl. For this she was cruelly punished, and her father was reminded of the case for a long time. Poor cried. She was painful not from physical damage, but from the fact that her father was very cruel to her. He ordered her to use the magic of healing, which their family was famous and successfully used. The girl couldn't do it. She has not fully mastered his ability. After being semi-grain, she could not fully master the power of his kind, and that was another reason for suffering. The father was increasingly saying that the girl was a shame of his kind. Often the girl apologized, but it caused a new flurry of bullying and laughing. Sometimes it even happened that her food was poisoned. One day, when a similar situation happened and Camilla suffered from poison, Catly ran up to her. The girl was surprised that her sister did not find her poison. Even then, she began to guess something. Catly seemed to be bullied by her sister. She said it was a pity Camilla because she could not use magic. For the younger, it was something like God just mocks the poor girl. The father reassured his younger daughter. He said that he specifically added the poison to Camilla food because he hoped that the emergency situation would awaken his older daughter. But unfortunately, this did not happen. Perhaps the dose of poison was too small. Catly asked if she could also help her sister to awaken her strength. The man agreed. Camilla thought that it could only mean something horrible and testified to new bullying. The younger sister approached Camilla and offered to try the dish she brought for her. The poor man asked not to do this because she felt badly now, but her sister persistently offered. Catly said that when something went wrong, she would surely help her. In fact, she was very angry about this common man, who was born of a random union of father and some peasants. Camilla was never perceived as a person. She was always in the eyes of her relatives like an animal. They always mocked and tried to humiliate it. And this time the sister also almost killed her. Recalling the events of the past, the girl believed that the words about love and family were empty sounds for her. She could no longer believe in another. She considered everything else something to go to a joke. And then a boy who smiled and promised to wait until they would play and play together. He also said that everyone around is waiting for this moment and love her. The little one held a girl wrapped in something like a mantle. He told that everyone was considered a child sent by God to the royal family. It is only necessary to cry, as everyone around will start sad. But Anemone thought she did not believe them. She believed that all this was just pretending. The girl did not believe in their sincerity and truthfulness of the words. However, she did not see any other way out while in the baby's body. The older brother said that she had the most beautiful smile that he only saw. The Anemone was wondering why he told her all, but the little one could not calm down. He promised that he would constantly protect it. The parents heard the words of the son and rejoiced in this. He told that he would never offend her, but would always be in defense of all bad and unbearable. It was evident that he was very fond of his sister, and his parents respected. Anemone listened carefully. Some guesses swept to her, but in fact, such cute and sincere words broke her heart. It is difficult to believe after so many years of wandering that there is something light in life. Over the next days, it was paved more and more. The father did not spare anything for toys for her and all kinds of pleasant things for young children. Although the girl could not still appreciate all this, the mother loved her daughter. It will in no way allow anyone to offend it or somehow mock it. The mother's heart felt that he had once been made with her daughter very terrible and not fair. Every time the woman confessed to her daughter that she loves her very much and is ready for everything for the well-being of the baby, Anemone could not answer anything. Instead, she slept very often and for a long time. A brother came to the girl again. He looked at it again and praised her beauty. This time he also brought a paper toy for her. But the girl could not play her. She slept again and rest. The boy didn't want to wake her up. He just replied that he hopes for a good day today and a new beautiful day for the sister. That's where their meeting had to end. He had many things. Camilla heard everything, despite the fact that everyone seemed to be sleeping. The girl wanted to believe that she would also treat her when she wakes up and grow a little. But it will tell the time. Many artists gathered in the room. The queen, with her daughter in her hands, posed for artists. She decided to perpetuate this moment, the birth of her daughter, for the next generations. With this joy, the woman wanted to share. The king and the prince carefully considered the backs of the artists what they wrote. Little believed that the invited masters of the brush failed to convey all the beauty of the small and mother. They may not receive fees. Men tried to justify. They explained that they understand the intentions of husband and son. However, they are not able to do so. After all, the queen and her daughter are too beautiful and unique. The prince expressed his dissatisfaction with court artists and their quality of order. Now they began to justify themselves, protecting their title of court artists. The king also laughed to encourage the artists more to work. He often said that they were not worthy of being brush craftsmen who were spoken in the people, and they did not justify his hope. The artists were constantly saying that they would try better to fulfill the order. But in fact, Anemone and her mother was difficult to convey in the picture. Rumors throughout the country have already dispersed the beauty of the mother and daughters. Camilla, meanwhile, thought that in order to know the true attitude towards herself, she needed to wake up. But even when she does it, he will not be able to do anything fully without knowing to talk. The prince worshipped his parents and apologized, but now it's time to go to class. He did not want to do it, but now it's time to say goodbye to her sister, so he can no longer restrain himself. The boy kissed his sister for goodbye. But I thought about how everyone around trying to love her and please. It was more like how the flower was looked after in the greenhouse, but now it was different. The preparation of the young panic took a long time. In the morning he was taught literature and stories. The old teacher was kind to the prince, but demanded that the rules carefully prepared and compliance. After that, fencing lessons, which took up most of the day. Often the prince came from there barely holding on his feet. Physical training of the future king was carried out according to military service standards. Finally, the old magician taught Jean's wisdom of magic and alchemy. The prince himself was not delighted with these lessons, but in a world where magic and magic were integral things, it was a must and vital. And when the prince returned to his room, he could spend time reading his favorite works, or deepening the knowledge already gained from some studied discipline. His day was painted for hours. Jean was the only possible heir to the kingdom. The father put huge hopes on his heir, and in order to become a powerful and worthy ruler, you need to learn a lot and carefully and absorb wisdom. But the girl was happy only from the fact that she came into this world to the royal family. The Anemone believed that the little one had to envy her and keep her image, as it was in her past life with her. The girl remembered how Catly took all her attention, and Camilla herself tried to reach heights in all areas only to pay attention to it. And here the older brother loved her just like that, and did not try to harm her. The king worried that her daughter did not wake up since her birth. She just did not open her eyes for a long time. After that, a strong sleep swept her, and the girl did not wake up more. The wife asked the husband whether it could be the result of a disease, or perhaps a spell. If so, then you need to convene a meeting of magicians and sorcerers, as well as doctors. The king in despair promised that he would do everything for his daughter, you healthy. He promised to find all the possible doctors and healers of the kingdom, as well as to seek the help of sorcerers of different clans. The woman reassured her husband so that he would not be hot, but it happened that he could not calm down. Anemone heard their conversation. She realized that her parents wanted her to woke up as soon as possible from a deep sleep. The girl did not want to get to this world, and she did not plan to open her eyes. She did not want to know the pain and despair from how surrounding people would treat it. It will better sleep. Jean came into the room. He had a beat. There were bruises on his face, and grass and branches were stuck in his hair. The father immediately asked what happened to his son. He replied that nothing older happened to him. The boy brought flowers for his sister. He said that it was in honor of these flowers. He was sure that she was sleeping, but the smell of flowers would be remembered for life. That is why Jean was in such a whine. He won flowers for his sister. It is difficult to even imagine in what places he had to visit it. The father asked why the son did not ask for a gardener or one of his servants. Those would gladly help. The boy replied that he decided to get the flowers for his sister on his own. Otherwise, it would not be true. The whole atmosphere would be lost. The king said, "Everyone wants to do a lot of good for the princess, but we do not have to act radically." The mother laughed at her boys. They almost quarreled because of such a trifle. The woman has not fun so long ago and did not laugh. But suddenly she noticed how the girl tried to open her eyes. The Anemone did not want to live. She didn't want to open her eyes to see the face, but she became interesting for something. She heard the smell of flowers, and it finally resolved the question. The princess opened her eyes and looked closely. The mother and father were very pleased with her awakening. For Camilla, this remained a mystery. She's never met something like this in her past life. Its appearance in this house was regarded in general as a miracle. The servants were cleaned in the hall. They were preparing for solemn reception. They were fussed and prepared for solemnity. There was no rest in the palace. The fuss prevailed around. The queen personally controlled everything. The day came when the Anemone's brother was oath. A lot of guests gathered. The king himself accompanied his son to a man who held a sacred book to bring an oath. The mother told the girl that today the brother would be oath. It was a truly unique day. Although the people already recognized the king's small heir, but Jean wanted to hold a ceremony after the sister wake up. The boy stood in front of his father and aristocrats. He sometimes looked at his mother and sister. The woman explained the Anemone that the boy was nervous. After all, it is a significant event in the life of every nobleman, and especially the prince of the successor. The kingdom was famous for the magicians of light, which were marked by their power and wisdom. They went to gossip about the fact that the founder of the kingdom was a sacred beast, completely consisting of the energy of good. And from that time, every inhabitant of this kingdom has carried a part of the energy of good. This also explained some well-being and abundance that prevailed in the kingdom. Anemone thought why her mother tells her such details. The king and the queen were expected at the beginning of the ceremony. They looked carefully at their son. He was nervous, but he had to get out. After all, he devoted himself to preparation and training for the future. The man passed the prince of the holy book. The solemn silence prevailed around, which no one dared to break even a dress or clothing. The solemn adoption ceremony is now taking place. The chief commander of the state handed the future king of the supreme commander, in chief of the kingdom. This meant that the army and the navy were recognizing Jean's command. The jeweler presented the symbol of power and wisdom of the king. It was a roll decoration. Many people said that it was given by a magical creature, the founder of the kingdom, the first ruler of these lands. Finally, his father handed his son a ring. It was a traditional decoration, a gift for the day of the ceremony to all kings and queens who passed this age, old custom. The ceremony was successful for Jean. The present unanimously and without any objections were attached to Jean by the next king of the state Ricole. The guy was proud that his efforts did not go away in vain, and he deserved to become a king in the future. The family looked at the Anemone, who was sitting in the beautiful Roger of the dress on the couch. The father and mother constantly praised her daughter, but now she was not before. The girl still couldn't trust them fully. The young prince said that although his sister is a member of their family, he considers her a beauty purely objective. No one could argue with him. After all, everyone who saw the girl, even when she slept, agreed. The father reported that this night there would be a festive salute in honor of a successful ceremony and in honor of the new Prince Ricole. And tomorrow will be arranged by a solemn parade, which will feature many soldiers and subjects. The prince suggested showing everyone around the princess. The parents agreed with this proposal, but Camilla heard everything that the king told. She believed that it would all be for Jean himself. She did not want to take part. The brother took the girl for her hair. He asked the parents to allow his sister to go with his sister. The king and his wife were not against it. The girl believed that she was just used as a regular thing or decoration. There were many guests in the large throne room. Aristocrats and nobles agreed to meet in this room after the ceremony. The rulers of neighboring lands and the vassals of the king discussed the latest news. The prince and his sister went into the room. Everyone was silent. Many have heard about the appearance in the family of the king of the daughter, but no one dared to ask to show the princess. Now everyone was looking at her. The girl began to be angry. Brother believed that she just did not like loud cities and unnecessary sounds. Camilla thought that Jean is quite guessing and smart. He said he was also not delighted with this. Ladies and gentlemen just looked silently at the following rulers of the kingdom. Women looked at the girl with delight. Some people had thoughts about what they also want a girl. When the prince worshipped the ladies, they just fell in love with the young ruler, and the princess made an even more pleasant impression. The women unanimously decided that the girl is very beautiful and chic. The girl clearly did not like such attention and reaction to her. The brother said it was just the duty of the royal family sometimes to show people and show their commitment to the subjects and to blaze them. Little thought it was unnecessary to talk to a little girl. However, when he said it aloud, Camilla thought he should not be hit, because the boy was still 9 years and he knew nothing about his life. Suddenly a man whom he did not expect to see here became before the prince, but his sister was even more surprised. Camilla's father from the past life stood in front of the toddler. He said glad to see the prince. The girl immediately remembered certain events from the past life. She realized that she was in the body of a little girl, but worried that she was not recognized. Trizo Oxalis was in front of her at the moment. The man congratulated the prince on the ceremony. From now on, Oxalis also spread to the young ruler. Jean asked if the Duke of Osalis was in front of him. After all, the gossip painted it completely differently. The Duke was glad that the prince remembered him. The little one replied to hear a lot about the ruler of those lands, but the gossip indicated that not very good glory was in this man. It is not necessary to rejoice. Only now did the man pay attention to the princess. He said the girl is a real beauty. But she thought that Jean did not know all the hypocrisy and falsehood of this man. If he knew, he would not even talk to him. The Duke leaned low to the girl and reached out. The boy was starving. He was not pleasant to this man, but now he could not say anything in his excuse. The girl did not want to contact him. Trizo smiled. He asked if he could shake his high prince's high hand. He agreed. Something was alerted in this man. The latter's company was not pleasant to him from the beginning. The aristocrats present and the subjects watched the husband and Jean, who were already ready to shake their hands. Some considered a very humiliating for the prince the request of the man to shake his hand as Rivne. Their hands were already close enough when the girl remembered that Oxalis was a famous magician who specialized in poisons and all kinds of curses. Representatives of this kind can kill a person with one shook. The man's hand swept a bright glow. The strands of energy danced in hand. The Duke was scared. He did not immediately realize what was happening right now. It lasted only a moment. But the man managed to be frightened not to the joke of such a reaction. Other guests and guards ran to the victim. He replied to all the questioning that everything was fine and nothing wrong. But for the prince himself, it remained a mystery. Then he did not know that his sister saved his life. The girl looked fiercely at her husband and mentally ordered him to get away from this place. The boy did not understand what the sister's reaction was caused, and she could not calm down and almost rushed out of her hands. The man replied that he was time to go. Therefore, he is forced to say goodbye to the prince and his cute sister. He was still impressed by what happened to him. He even feared that it could happen. The parents hurried to the girl and Jean. They were concerned after servants reported the incident. The boy assured that everything is fine, but no one knew that Camilla, meanwhile, spent all the energy on it. The king assured that it was a protective reaction, caused by a magical way. Jean assured that he did not do it. But now it became obvious that he was defending the young panic that was his sister, who just fell asleep. The boy has been thinking about something for a long time, but now he was very fun. He kept a girl in his hands and laughed loudly. It is today that it can be considered as the second birthday. Jean told everyone around that the girl was in fact a reincarnation of the Holy Virgin, who conveyed her strength to the king's daughter, and it is she who will save the future of the kingdom from decline and agony. Camilla herself laughed. What nonsense could only come to her brother and these adults? It just couldn't happen. If she could speak, She would now be disappointed now by the hopes of her loved ones. 6 years later, two young men sat in a room in front of a table that laid out some jars and objects. They looked at the table carefully on the table and talked about something. It was evident that there was a dispute. One of the boys regretted whether all these fake items were indeed. His interlocutor confirmed this guess and replied that more and more fakes have been on the market lately. There could be nothing to do with it. A girl came into the room. She had a rather upset facial expression. It seemed that at her young age she learned a lot. The girl asked to forgive her for interrupting the conversation. The girl approached the man who spoke to the young man. She greeted him and said that she was very pleased to see her grandfather healthy and full of strength. He, in turn, was delighted with his granddaughter Anemone. Grandpa said that from the moment of their last meeting, the girl has grown very much and became a real beauty, but thanked for the compliment. Grandpa she loved very much and respected for his wisdom. This man was named Ranoa Duel. He was the father of Mother Anemone, Queen of Raffin, and it was he who was responsible for the control of all the magicians at the court of the king. The emergence of fakes of magical objects was its problem. The man continued to tell. The girl sat beside him. She heard her grandfather complain that the subject can be distinguished from fake only when you start using it. He added that visually they cannot be distinguished at all. Again, before the girl's look, secret green eyes appeared. They gave her a hint again. The anemone ordered the curtains to be lowered and to make silence for a minute. The princess reached out and began to look carefully at the objects placed on the table. Suddenly, the energy that shone brightly. The girl tried to distinguish between fakes from the original. Grandpa and she could not even think that the princess was capable of similar. The girl suddenly said that the fake would not give light when you are affected by magical power. The grandfather was happy about this. He was surprised and enthusiastically told that he did not even know about the existence of such a research method. It was a new word in this area. He ordered to give an appropriate order. According to him, all the magicians who worked at the court of the king had a similar method to explore all magical objects and tools. The man considered his grandson a truly gift of heaven. She had an extraordinary talent. The girl did not pay attention to his words. She was silent that her talent was not limited. In fact, Anemone is able to see the traces of dark magic and everything that has been connected with it. Poor did not want to draw attention. The princess was walking the hall. There were 2 guards behind her. The girl knew that everyone was considered a magician around her. The subject said that the girl was already born with the abilities for magic and had a great gift. Her baby abilities developed without the help of teachers and mentors. The parents were surprised and rejoiced in their daughter. She was so reliable and worthy of being a princess and their daughter. The magicians from the tower said that the girl had the potential of the Holy Virgin, who was considered one of the founders of the Kingdom of Recol. Some of the magicians even wanted to lure the talented girl to her student. The legend stated that the girl could see the magic of the whole world, and most likely, the gift of the Virgin has awakened in the girl right now. Anemone decided to learn even more about the magic and nature of her abilities. Fortunately, the present life was very different from the previous one. She was now allowed to study literature and learn more about magical abilities. There were no abuse and beatings in the past life. Then it was closed in a small room, without windows, without a light source. Often, in such conditions, it was left for a very long time. In this way, it grew up without the ability to develop and learn something new. Everyone was considered a derivative and a little mentally retarded. Often, everyone believed that it was not much better than ordinary servants. Then she felt much worse than her sister and limited in resources. This time, she was lucky. Parents, on the contrary, rejoiced because the girl showed such a craving for learning and developing her abilities. She now realized that she was doing it without the help of magicians and teachers, mentors. However, despite the felt Anemone much better than when she lived in her past life, the images of her father and a sister did not rest her. Much has changed since the last meeting with her relatives. They went out that the Duke Oxland's daughter had the opportunity to marry the prince from the next kingdom. The Duke himself has achieved a lot about international relations and politics. Catley adored the subjects and wished her and her groom happiness and well-being. The girl's father was respected and was very fond of him. The Duke came up with a tragic story about the disappearance of her older daughter. He spread rumors that she had died of a terrible illness. Everyone was sympathetic to them and tried to support both of them. Everything was equipped very well and Oxalis flourished. The girl only regretted that she could not revenge on her father and Catley now. All you have to do is study and think about what to do in the future. She devoted her to training all the time. Her brother came to the rescue of the anemone. For all these years, he became a real handsome man. Brother Jean supported his sister in every way in all her endeavors and aspirations. She felt very confident with him. The brother often reproached her for spending too much time for her age. The girl was not offended. She believed that she was doing what she considered she needed, and there was nothing wrong with this. Jean recalled yesterday when she promised to come to her for tea, not come. He sat for a long time and hoped that she would soon appear. But this did not happen. He also suggested that he was very sad. The girl asked to forgive her. After all, she read and studied all this time. And now I wanted to take the opportunity and ask the brother who was the divine beast that so much is written about. Jean said that the beast was called a unicorn, who, according to the legends, together with the Holy Virgin, founded the kingdom. It was this animal that taught to use the people of Ricola magic and gave people the ability to do so. The girl really liked when the brother told her the story of the kingdom. He was very read and competent. Unlike tutors, he was patient and attentive to the girl and told different nuances. The boy asked the anemone what the difference between the inner magic word and the force given from the outside. The girl said that the magical force from the outside accumulates in objects and plants from the outside. But the peculiarity of inner strength was that it was released by contact with the atmosphere. It takes a lot of time and effort to restore the inner magical power. Bartik praised the girl. He said that she will learn everything very quickly, and soon he would know much more than he himself. The Anemone replied that in this case she would be less disturbed and asked. The boy said that he was not difficult for he to do, and Camilla thought that at his age should be other interests than to sit with a girl of 6 years. He asked if the girl was not bored constantly to sit in 4 walls. Jean suggested going to the theater. The sister refused. She did not really like to go out or attend events. The same was not surprising about it. She was interested in why her brother wanted to bring her somewhere. Jean explained that books were very good, but outside the window was the whole world with its interests and interests. The same cannot be constantly being spent on books and knowing the world around them only from them theory. In addition, he wanted to spend more time with her. For Anemone, it also remained a mystery. Finally, the girl still seemed. She said she agreed to attend the play this time with her brother. He promised that he would lead her to the best performance throughout the kingdom. He said he would prepare everything on his own. The girl was strange that her brother was 15 years old, and his love for her grew more and more. Finally, she said that at his age it is advisable to spend more time with peers, not devote to her all the time. In addition, the vacations will soon end with him, and he will be forced to leave his father's estate. But John did not give up. He asked that it is bad for him to spend time with his sister. The girl was strange to hear such words from him. After all, he loved it just. She did nothing important to him. When Anemone was already going to her room, a servant approached her. He asked if the young lady was busy. After all, the queen invites her to lunch, and asked to convey that she would not agree to her refusal because of another contrived cause. The girl agreed. The mother repeatedly invited her, but all the previous times she had to give up. Anemone grew a closed girl. She did not want the company of other people and felt perfectly alone. This time the mother asked straight. The queen was interested in whether her daughter wanted to study magic somewhere in the Magic Academy, where she would be assisted by magicians and magicians of all kinds and direction. The Anemone did not expect it. The girl replied that she had already had a tutor. But her mother said that he could not teach her student anything new, because she was too talented as for her girl. The same is surprising. The queen continued to speak. She reported that His Majesty had already written recommendations for his daughter. The Academy is already aware of the intentions of the royal family regarding the departure of Anemone. So it all depended on her desire and perseverance of the queen. The mother asked how the girl was treated, but she replied that she is only 6 years old, and it is very early to let the baby alone. The queen said that she discussed this issue a lot of time with her father, and he agreed because the girl was wise and talented over her true age, and that was enough to send to study. The mother added it was just an attempt. If the daughter does not like it, then she is to do the way as she seems necessary, but at the same time the mom will miss her. After all, without Anemone it will become very sad and lonely. The girl asked what her brother Jean was thinking about it. The mother replied that the boy was only 4, however, the last word remains with the girl and her decision. The same Anemone can think and weigh everything. The woman went on to another topic. She said that a tea ceremony had soon had to take place, which her acquaintances were invited with their girls. There, Anemone can find a girlfriend and make a friend with someone. The daughter was not delighted with this proposal. After all, she remembered her only marital relations with her younger sister and all her vibrations and deception. All this ended in general and sad for her. The girl became sad. After all, she acknowledged that she did not even have a notion of what friendship was. After all, in the past and present life, she has not been able to feel this strange experience and attraction to another person. Anemone sat in the room. She thought that she didn't really know what she wanted. Her soul couldn't calm down and sought revenge. So now she could not understand the happiness that prevailed around. Reflections and a hard day tired of the princess. She went to her bed and thought that she did not want to think more, because she had her head. It was necessary to just sleep and relax from everything around. The girls were sitting in the garden. They served the maid. The kids tasted sweets and discussed something loudly. The daughters of the respectable ladies and the lady were collected here specifically on the queen's order. Some people really wanted to make a princess. One of the girls brought cakes prepared by the boss, a bike specifically for this holiday. Someone else wanted to treat specially collected and brewed tea. However, the girl did not seem interesting. She wanted to leave this evening most of all, and the girls could not calm down. They met even more with each other and already moved to the stage when they boasted. For Anemone, their interests seemed very humiliated and landed. The girls could only talk about clothes and sweets. But suddenly one of the girls asked for silence, because she was about to show a new spell. The princess became interesting. A stranger to her girl read a loud and clear spell. There was a glow between her palms. It covered the girl and spread around. It was something interesting for Anemone. The girl thought that at such a young age it is very difficult to restrain her strength and spell. This required a lot of concentrations and efforts from the magician. And the stranger told everyone that the mentor praised her for success. But this time the focus came out of control. The girl did so that things around began to fly in the air. They were electrified and could not be touched with their hands not being damaged. Magic came out of control. The girls were very happy. They began to run and call loudly for help. Anemone thought how to deal with this situation. After all, she was afraid to harm the surrounding girls somehow. Finally, she dared. The girl reached out and read the spell. Suddenly, the energy around it went out, and with a roar, everything began to fall on the floor and break. It is time to read a light-hearted girl. Anemone stood opposite the girl who showed the focuses. She said she couldn't just play magic so much. After all, without a mentor, it was dangerous at all, and it was easily fashionable to do harm to someone. The poor man was apologizing, but the princess was difficult to reassure. She said that when a person is not able to do something, it may not do it quietly, because it will be safer for everyone. Anemone turned and went on her business. Finally, there was an opportunity to leave the company and do something useful and enjoyable. The girls ran up to the harm and began to reassure and support it. The princess knew that everyone would condemn her for hearing, but there was nothing wrong with this. In this case, it was fully rights, and the views of anger are not happy for her. She was killed by a boy. He called her a princess and asked if he could hope to spend a little time next to her. The girl became interesting, he recommended. He was called Luke von Gerber. The name seemed familiar. He filed a handkerchief so that he could wipe himself and put himself in order. To all, he promised to tell everyone that she was not guilty of anything. On the contrary, the magic disappeared and the guests remained intact. The princess was not going to listen to him. She knew well that she was not guilty, and she did not do anything wrong. And that was enough for her completely. And the opinion of others who did not deserve her attention did not worry at all. The boy said she had done heroically, and it was such ladies that he would seek to serve until the end of his days. Luke added that Pergan became her sword and shield. This proposal was interested in the girl and intrigued, but pride did not allow to agree to the same. She replied that she did not need such services, and that's what their conversation should end. The same Gerbera remained with nothing. His desire was not fulfilled. The girl became sad, but the desire to take revenge did not give her rest for a minute. Because of this, she felt bad and was constantly not satisfied, although there were many things that could please her. In the palace, her father was waiting for her with Luke. The king reported that from that day the son of the Marquis Gerber will be the guardian of the princess and will be accompanied by guarding it everywhere. He added that it was a great honor for him. His Majesty explained that Luke was the son of her maid, Cecil. For many years, they have served kings and loyal subjects, so along with this guy, the king saw only his daughter, which will be under constant supervision. And the princess, according to her father, was at the age when the girl needs personal protection. The girl thanked for such kindness, but sought to give up a personal guard, not considering fit. The king left the girl and Onion alone. They sat at the table and remained silent. Anemone realized that Princess Rickle needed escort, but she didn't think it would happen so fast. The boy was not bad in appearance, but she did not want someone to go with her constantly. This violated her idea of her own borders. However, the princess asked Herbert why he decided to serve her from the beginning, choosing her candidacy. The boy said that Prince Jean told about his sister only good, and it was not dictated by simple politeness. Even then, the girl was very interested in the son of Marquis, who had to choose who to start serving. And today the case made him see that he made a truly worthy choice. It was such a person that wanted to serve and defend it. It was something like love at first sight. The girl looked at him in surprise. He asked if she did not hear like that before. He explained that they say so when people fall in love, only seeing each other only once. The princess was strange to listen to his language. After all, he was no longer talking about loyalty and dedication, but that he falls in love with his lady. And this should not be done in their case. It is quite different. Anemone thought that this boy is very straight and open. He was reminiscent of the son. He finally said that he did not demand respect because of his appearance or origin. Luke was an opponent of this. The boy said he would do everything he needed to prove his dignity and dignity, even if you need to risk your own life. Therefore, he asked to observe his actions in the future. He considered their conversation completed. Luke worshipped and was about to go. He did not want to stuff the princess's empty chats. After all, he understood that she wanted to do her business now. The Anemone lay in her bed. The evening came, and the dream to the princess never came. She thought of today's meeting with Luke. The boy pleasantly impressed her with his courage and tact and courtesy. Now she mentioned his flame speech, and she was fine. But something, namely the memories of the past life, kept it from the like. The question remains how to find out if it is worthy of her attention. Anemone dreamed of sleep. There were her parents accompanied by soldiers or police there in the forest. The complete silence prevailed around, but something had to happen soon, and it would be a terrible thing. There was a collapse. The king and the queen looked with horror on a pile of stones that had drained from the mountain. There was no strength to stop the element, and it was not real to escape from it, because the flow was moving at great speed and threatened to crush people. The soldiers in a panic fled. They did not even try to stand in place, which threatened. The members of the royal family were protected by the guards, but they could do nothing with the flow of stones. The girl dreamed of a terrible dream. In the end, she realized that her parents had died. Anemone woke up with the horror that covered it. It was only pleasing that it was just a nightmare, but everything happened very real. The princess seemed to be there, in the place where the tragedy happened. She seemed to see everything that happened in her own eyes. It was very weak in sleep. The same princess intended to deal with this phenomenon. To do this, she gave up who Rickle was a magical beast for the people. The legend stated that the unicorn constantly defended the people of the kingdom from all kinds of troubles. He constantly helped his subjects. Very often he predicted people with a disease or death, but at the same time he pulled and helped the suffering and sick, rescuing them from death and rigid death. The time passed, and the animal gave this ability to the Holy Virgin. After that, the great sorceress began to anticipate the future and predict human destinies with fatum. The unicorn went to the side and helped only sometimes. The last words had a very strong influence on the girl. Is that she saw in Visnia a dream? It became scary that what could be realized. She did not want it very much. The girl believed that she could not allow today's dream to come to life. Right now, the family was sitting at the table and discussing the idea of visiting a village near the capital of the kingdom. The king reported that in the village for several years there have been raining. It is for the sake of helping the locals that His Majesty wants to try to organize protection against slipping the earth from rains. The queen added that such a visit can help raise the spirit of the village. The queen promised that the girl will be in the palace with her mother, and the father and Jean will visit the local population with a visit. Anemone realized that it was in this village that her family had to die. It was worth interfering with their plans. The same attracted attention to herself. But what can be offered to distract from this idea by the royal family? The girl asked her parents if she could also go to the village. The father replied that this visit would be official and the daughter would be very bored there. But if she wants it, he can join. The mother reassured the girl, because she promised to return soon. Jean intervened. He tried to protect the girl and help her. He said that while his parents were talking to people, he would look after his daughter. Brother added that he had never been on a trip with his parents and sister, and that was really the case. The father thought, in general, this journey could contribute that family relationships would only become stronger. Therefore, the man decided to order the servants to simply organize a larger crew for travel. Jane will look after her daughter until they come back with the queen with a solemn ceremony. The mother rejoiced in such an idea. She said she would soon order to prepare a traveling dress and a solemn meeting with the residents of the village. The girl was glad because her plan succeeded. Now it is worth planning further actions. Royal honor went to a village which was called Rodea. The territory was surrounded by forests and swamps. The village was located along the river. And right now you need to look at local possessions. The road was long. The mother reported that Seal prepared on a journey of lunch, and now the whole royal family tasted sandwiches and canapes prepared by a good and attentive service. The village was already preparing for guests. The atmosphere of joy and guests prevailed. People were amazed by the fact that the king himself, the glory of whom it was far beyond his possessions, decided to visit and help them. Jean and sister were walking around the village. The boy believed that the terrain was very beautiful, if it were not for the consequences of the catastrophe and the tragic events that took place around. Anemone agreed with him. The girl remembered the details of her sleep. Accordingly, the shift happened outside the village, far beyond the village. The same should be careful about this. The brother noticed a certain anxiety that the girl had mastered. Jean noticed the strange behavior of his sister. He was surprised that the girl did not want to go out before, and now she asked to go to the distant village, although it usually sits on books. The Anemone reassured the boy. She said she was completely calm, and the brother exaggerates everything that is happening now, but she could not lie. Now it is worth admitting that it really made her leave the palace. She also said that she just follows the advice of a brother about the fact that you need to study the world not only with books. Suddenly, they heard loud stupid behind them. Someone ran from the forest very quickly. The trail was approaching the bow. He waved his hand and asked him to wait. The little one was glad to meet the royal family. It remained a mystery that he found himself here. Maybe he was told by Cecil. The prince asked the boy who, panting as he got, how he found out where to find Princess and Jean himself. The prince was friends with the boy, so he was glad when he saw him in this place. Luke explained that the king allowed her daughter to accompany this trip. Nothing surprise could not happen when he found the royal family right now in this place. The same explanations were not necessary. Jean felt a little offended, because he believed that his father did not trust him completely. The son promised the king that he would protect the princess on his own and ensure her safety in this trip and protect the princess. Jean said he heard that the girl had been oath. It was Luke who decided to become a knight of the princess, and this was not surprising because he deserved to be approached to the royal family. Luke himself asked how the prince learned about it. He replied that the whole yard has long been hominy, and Jean was very familiar with the guy very long ago, but it was not the mystery of his desire to serve the princess. But the prince warned that the faithful knight of his highness of the princess always remembered that the first knight was always her older brother. But the girl asked what armor on Jean, if he was the king of the ruler. Brother replied that he was ready for his sister to do everything he would need. But she reassured him and asked to pay less attention to her and to do her own life. In addition, there is now someone to follow and protect her. Luke said he would never forget it. But it is a very great honor for him who will be in defense of the honor and the life of her high Anemone. But he will always envy Jean and his position. The prince was glad that forced the guard to envy him. He agreed, but said that he would not leave his oath under any circumstances. It was very impressed by the girl. After all, in her past life, she did not know what devotion was. The prince said he did not like the straightness of the boy, but his desire to serve and be faithful impressed and forced to think and look at his own views on ministry and devotion. From the conversation, their distraction is a loud cry. One of the locals called for help. He noticed how the boy fell into the river and began to sink. The man himself could not help, because he could not swim and feared water. The boys ran to the rescue. They ordered the princess not to leave this place. Soon they had to return, and it will be very bad if something happens with the Anemone during this time. Now the princess had the opportunity to fully deal with her questions. The grief that happened to a local boy seemed to have happened specifically to keep it alone. Anemone got a book. In no circumstances it will not happen because it had to happen after she saw that terrible dream. The determination overwhelmed the girl, and she was about to save her family. She was traveling specifically to get to the desired place she saw in her sleep. The necessary place was very far from the village, and soon the princess was tired of walking for so long. The girl fell, leaning through the root of the tree. The anemone was very clogged. She felt that such a walk for her, used to the palace, was surprisingly unusual. But there was no time to rest. Her path ran through valleys and depressions. Often they had to climb through the creepers on a steep rock which had a lot of poisonous plants and animals. Snakes were raised on stones, disturbed by humans. Finally, after a few hours of the journey, she got to the place she saw in her dream. So soon it was necessary to begin what it did not give her rest lately. But it depended on the life of the royal family. A wonderful landscape opened from the rock. The girl saw under the feet of the village, in which there was now a solemn meeting of the royal family. The princess herself was frightened where she got. The princess held a book with magical spells and a crystal that had stabilized the magic and power of spells and bells. These things should help her stop the catastrophe that came to the city. The girl was constantly repeating the words, which sounded like a mantra. She tuned in the way that will handle everything that would fall into her destiny. A loud roar in the mountains reported that soon everything had to start. The girl stood in front of a huge community. It moved, and with every second it was approaching closer. Anemone gathered with forces to stop this terrible restless flow that took death and destruction. Meanwhile, the prince and guard of Anemone came to the place where they were called one of the locals and asked for help. There they saw a boy who was hanging in the water and pleading to help him. Jean rushed into the water and sailed to the place where the boy was. Many people have already gathered on the banks of the river. Everyone was closely monitored by the actions of the boy, in which they eventually recognized the son of His Majesty of the King. Outside the shore, the rescuer handed over the small meadow. The boy was shaking from the cold and fright. Princess's guard tried to reassure him, and he almost succeeded. Many people gathered around. The grateful parents did not know how to thank the prince for the child's rescue. He modestly replied that he needed nothing, but the boy should be taken to a warm room faster and heated. Finally, when both rescuers returned to the place where they had to wait for the anemone, they did not find the princess there. But the guard was not lost. He noticed something on the ground and asked the prince to look. The boys realized that the traces that belonged to the princess were leading to the foot of the mountain. They could not believe that the girl would dare to go there. Because of frequent rains, there was a huge probability of shifting stones from the slopes of the mountains. Their attention was attracted by the king, who distributed orders to his guards and subjects. People were worried, and these were bold soldiers who passed more than one campaign in the war. The same guys were even more nervous. The queen's mother tried to take the children and everyone who was near them to the village. After all, everyone heard the hum, which came from the top of the mountains, from where the flow of stones and dirt was flying, hiding everything in its path. The guard and the prince realized where the princess disappeared. They rushed to the mountain direction. The chances of salvation were scanty, but they will not be able to forgive themselves that they do not take advantage of the only opportunity. The Anemone kept a stone in one hand and held a book with spells the other. In this way, she will be able to grind the stones flying on her and switch it to the other side. A magical pentagram began to form around the young witch. The spell began to materialize. The anemone was grinding the flow. At this time, she thought about her new family and their salvation. The sphere in the girl's hands shone. The princess wanted to thank her relatives for their loved and protected. She did not know such an attitude from past life, but considered herself obliged to relatives. The king, meanwhile, gave orders to his soldiers, and it was already necessary to get away, but he did not want to throw his daughter to his or her daughter. The detachment commander reported that the shift had already begun in the mountains, and you will not stop it. Panic began among the local population. People tried to run away, but no one could really understand the direction of threat. Panic spread among the population. Children and old people were evacuated. Many people understood that no matter how sorry it was to leave their home, but it is worth getting out of here. The village will soon be destroyed. Fatum was difficult to accept and put up with it finally. Meanwhile, the girl was in front of the threat. She felt that the threat was much greater than she predicted. The forces began to leave her. The princess became scared, and she began to panic in front of the avalanche. But when she felt a critical moment, the princess remembered her relatives. It was this that gave her determination and restored the strength of the spirit that began to leave her. If she relaxes, her parents will die. One day she was already killed at the hands of a treacherous father and a sister. For the second time, the Anemone is simply and is not going to give up before death. So now it will resist the threat to the last, without retreating. She renewed the shield with a strong spell. The stones roamed as if the giant was trying to crush the girl with his fist and wipe her out of the earth's face. The little princess resisted the elements and fought against the power of nature. Anemone felt the influx of strength. The girl was already convinced that from now on would not allow the death of her relatives and hundreds or thousands of people. The confidence settled in it. The stones crumbled into small pieces. Before the eyes of the princess was the image of the Virgin, who was sitting on the unicorn. Holidays tried to tell her something, but behind the hum of stones, the girl did not hear anything and could not figure out what the legendary Virgo told her. Anemone came to the middle of the deep gorge. The girl looked at the landscape who spread in front of her at the exit. She realized that she had time to save the king and his family. She succeeded. The exhausted princess fell to the ground. The forces left the girl. There was a book with spells and a crystal that broke up and the small pebbles. Anemone's body was not obeyed. The girl was scared. The earth under her feet fled. The young sorceress lost his resistance. She did not feel her body as if she had fallen. Mana was over. It was very similar to how she died for the first time. Ironically, that this time she would die on the rock. But at the last moment, she thanked God for giving her the opportunity to live among normal people. Anemone hoped that she was able to thank them with her act, and fully atoned her attitude towards them. She seemed to be awake from sleep when she realized that she had been calling Jean. He held his sister by his hand. The boy himself was on the edge of the rock. He lay on her and tried to pull his sister out of the trap. The hand slipped. The prince shouted at his sister. He demanded to come to mind and also grasped the hand. He swore that he would do everything he needed to pull it out, only she would come to her senses and helped him hold his hand. Finally, the princess realized what a brother needs. After a few seconds, she was holding his hand firmly and helped him pull himself out of the trap. Both sat on the edge of the rock and hugged firmly. The princess was already in her room in the palace. There was a mother and father around her. The parents were very happy because their daughter is alive and healthy. Doctors did not find anything during the examination. You can be calm. The husband and wife hugged their daughter. She could not understand what had happened. After all, her memory has long left on the day she saved the village from death. But over time, she realized that she was not in the royal palace. The king told that they were in the estate near the village where everything happened. Doctors advised not to move the girl and not to go to work, as it could harm the anemone and shake her health. Before that, the king appealed to the assembled people. He recalled that the peasants are still alive. They were also the responsibility of their decent people to find magicians, and doctors who could help the girl. Many doctors and healers came to the call. They all unanimously agreed that the princess simply spent his entire stock of mana, which is why she lost consciousness. It will take care of the same time. The next question asked the Anemone was the question regarding the fate of the village. The king said that the shift became smaller and changed, and did not harm the village and the people in it. It's all right. The father also said that many people gathered under the windows of the room to pray for her health and life. The prince and mother tried to take them away so that they would not make noise, but they did nothing. The crowd did not obey. Jean and his friend sat on the couch. The mother explained that it was those two who found a girl at the moment when she was in critical situations. They could not be blamed for something, because they saved the life of the drowning. It was Luke who brought the princess to his parents in his hands. The Anemone's brother had no strength after pulling the girl from the abyss. He also entrusted the princess to her guard and did not regret. After all, he raced with the girl in her arms for her. The girl approached the boys sitting on the couch. Their appearance was not very occupied, but now it was not important. The princess thanked them for saving her life. She also apologized to leaving them then. In the Catley garden, and his father talked about the future meeting of the girl with the prince, who had to arrive at their estate for minutes. The girl was not pleased with this message, because she didn't like the prince very much. Unexpectedly for herself, she stabbed the rose thorn. The girl looked at her hand for a long time. She was hypnotized. But when she recovered, she said that the beauty of flowers is not only in appearance, but in inviolability. She put her hand in her mouth and sucks her finger from which blood flowed. Now Catly regretted that her sister was killed. After all, right now she needed someone who would allow themselves to mock and make fun. My father looked at his daughter who had to become a queen. Harfia people accepted it. After all, it has become better over the years. The prince was also just delighted with her. He fell in love with the girl very quickly. But the main reason for Cathel's success was that her sister died so quickly. No one knew the causes of death. Everyone was known only to the version of the duke and his daughter. The subjects sympathized with the ruler. My father often thought that when he had a case at the king's palace, he was in the first place for some reason about his late daughter. It was strange, but so he felt. Intuition rarely brought it. Catly noticed that her father's mood changed very quickly. She wondered how he feels. The duke was not happy to continue to talk, so he ordered her daughter to prepare for the prince's reception and his recovery. The man could not keep this secret. For a long time, she did not give him rest. It is now that he said it was his fault that Camilla had died. He confessed that he pushed it from the rock. The executioner put his finger on his lips. The man was confused. In the meantime, the girl said she didn't want someone to know about it. It is not necessary to make noise right here in the garden, where they could be listened to or just heard. Catly asked not to tell anyone. She did not blame him. After all, everything he did for her good. The same thing did not make sense to live in the past and regret what was done. The same daughter said that it is worth a hurry, not to waste time. The man was glad that her daughter became more and beautiful every year. However, now the girl began to frighten him. Her attitude to the said did not surprise him. It alarmed something. Meanwhile, Catly thought that she was bored to live. The girl wanted to find a new toy for fun to spend the time when boredom won her. She did not know the more productive way. Anemone sat in the room. She remembered the events of that day so she could. The girl was afraid that her dreams were really greetings, and it became awkward. The sacred beast conveyed his abilities to the girl and made her a virgin. But at the same time, the Anemone thought that she could change the future. After all, she knew about all the unhappiness that could have a kingdom or family of a monarch. So the virgin and the beast blessed her gift. In the future, the girl began to develop her skills. The mentors and masters were just delighted with what this student showed. Grandpa praised her because he never had a magical crystal of His Highness so brightly. The man often repeated that the talent and the gift of his grandchildren could be compared to how the unicorn and the blessed holiday of the Virgo owned the magic. Over time, the Anemone could become a virgin and stand up for Rihola.